Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to SIRENNET Television. This is a Whelen product that I have here in my hand. It is the R2L PPA, and this young man over here, otherwise known as Chris, is going to take it apart. There you go, Chris. Take it apart.
Thank you, sir. Well, Stuart said it best, but I'll just go ahead and copy him. Whelen Engineering's R2L PPA LED mini bar. Definitely call it a mini bar as opposed to a mini beacon, because really, when it's rectangular like this, it's just a classic mini bar shape. And actually, really the R2 you could at this point consider a classic. I think I remember when these first came out off the production line, probably 2009, 2010 about, maybe even sooner, but still remember when these things were in the catalog, got the first demo unit, and just how great it was, and it's still completely great, so don't get me wrong there. It's really linear for the mini bar aspect of it versus using some other different styles of light heads that Whelen does have in different mini bars. So really, you have what's almost equivalent inside the bar here to a 6-diode linear head that you often find in Liberty light bars. Well, not often, you find in Liberty light bars. Actually, when these things first were produced, the insides were a bit different than what I'm going to show you here, but they did in fact use the same module that was found in the Liberty bar. So if you wanted, you could actually get one of these, interchange parts from your Liberty. The harness inside was the same, and the module had 3 teeth on the top, 3 on the bottom, and actually popped into a channel in the bottom and channels in the top of the dome. But that's since gone, and it's been improved in the engineering aspect of how Whelen has the internals. And really, since I've talked about it, might as well go ahead, get to the insides. It's simply held together with 4 screws, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. Nice little stainless steels, as opposed to some of those classic little black ones that you always see me working with. Go ahead, pulls right off the top like you can see, nice and easy with the screws out. 1-piece polycarbonate dome. It's actually really trick. Whelen's etched right in the top of it. So now with the nice amber dome removed, have a great look at the nice and shiny insides here. You have a center mount flasher, quick disconnect harness, which is really great should you ever need to do any servicing with the bar. Get a good view of the modules. So you can see you have 2 here, 2 here, 1 on each side. And with the curved reflectors, the linear diffuser, and the total of the 6 diodes, the mini bar just gives you absolutely great coverage. So not only is it potent head-on, but in an off-axis point, 45 degrees out, the curved reflectors really don't allow for a blank spot to be seen when the bar's on and flashing. If you need to service the flasher, quite simple. Disconnect the harness here, disconnect the harness here, 2 screws, out of the way. It's an epoxy-filled unit, also self-contained, so this here is what contains the flash pattern settings and also the other trigger features of the 6-strand harness that's right there. Just wanted to double check, make sure I wasn't going to say something a little off kilter. Harness input, harness input. So it's actually quite neat. This is the end that has the 6 wires from the exit mount harness here. That plugs into the flasher, so it gives it power, gives it the ground feed, also the high-low, the sync function, the scan lock, and another really cool feature. I'll show you that after a minute here. And then the input here goes out to all the individual light heads. So really the units here are just dummy units. If you put them to power, put them to ground, the only thing they would do is just steady glow amber. There's no flashing to them. That's where this comes into play. So really with this here, just 6 grounds, 6 leads is really what this plug does here, just to go to each of the light heads. And speaking of quick disconnect harnesses, you have a disconnect on each of the light heads. So you have a total of 3 on this side, 3 on this side here. It's a 2-pin like you've probably seen on several of the mini bars and other components that I've taken apart from Whelen. So again, it's plug and play. Modules are easy to remove should you need to. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you a quick example of how one of these is going to remove from the aluminum extrusion that's done onto the polycarbonate base. And really part of the feature of the extrusion of aluminum inside here, you can see it's a nice brushed finished piece, is it acts as a heat sink. So after the bar's been on, diodes get warm, the heat transfers through the reflector to the back of the aluminum here, down on the bracket, down to the main aluminum assembly here. So really, it's a big dissipation of heat after the bar's been on. So it gives the LEDs the great longevity that they have. Now, the modules themselves, held in with a small Torx head, you can see that they have two little steps here. So on the bottom of the extrusion, it slides in, drops down like so. Then the small hex head would go back into place, tighten it down to hold the module so it's nice and firmly mounted on the bottom here. That way when you're on moving with the vehicle, you don't have modules inside bouncing around. Each module is held in place with really the same fixture. So if you wanted to remove this here, same processy, lift it out, and you would disconnect it on the harness here. Actually, might as well do one more thing since I have this freed here, is inside, if you'd like, you can remove the reflector from the diode board. Two small Torx again, hold that in place. And here you have your diode assembly. So good view of the 6 amber diodes, and it's actually kind of neat. If we have a little bit of a zoom in here, you can see that even though they're not on, there's no power going through this, the diode itself actually has a bit of a classic orange or amber hue to it. So it's kind of neat with diodes now, you can take a quick look after you've had a bit of time with them and just look at them all the time. When it's not on, if it had a clear dome, you can look at the chip, look at the diode, and actually see what color it's going to be without having to turn it on, or if you have something that doesn't have a color match trigger. It's kind of a neat little feature with Whelen and the diodes. Mounting bracket, one piece, nice and cleanly made. And then reflector assembly. So you can see it has the center diffuser, and on the back here, the diodes go through the inset holes. You can see it's pretty nice and deep as far as reflectors go, so it gives you that really nice off-axis impact and really lets the diodes gain the potency and blast through the diffuser to give you a big light head output. Well, really if I take more of these apart, it's only going to be showing you more of the same thing. Each one's put together the same, held in place the same, so I might as well go ahead and start the process putting this back together. The great thing with Whelen is it's field serviceable. It's like you can see here, comes apart easily, goes back together just as easily. So if you need to do a module change, or even if you're customizing a variety of R2 bars, so you have reds and blues, you want to intermix, it's easy enough to do. Like you can see here, easy mount tools, disconnects, easy to change parts. With those realigned, we can go ahead, tighten this fixture back together. There we go, one piece again. Drops right into the bracket, so you always have the same and proper spacing. This one's back in already. Almost got away from me. Nice and back in place, nothing loose. Flasher goes right back in place here. take the 2 original screws that were removed that hold it in its space here, and back these will go. Reconnect of the harness, and again, plug and play, so it's easy enough. You can see it snaps into place, so you know it'll be locked in nice and tight. Dome, easy enough, drops right back on the top here. And actually, with the dome only being 4-screw mounted and being very easy to remove and put back on, for your install purposes, for running bolts, screws, basically any kind of mounting hardware that you may be using in your application, it's easy enough to run it through if you need to from the top going down. And you can actually see incorporated in the base, you have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 done and pre-threaded mount holes. So you can set this on your application, mark the holes, and then go ahead and mount it. So if you're running bolts or screws through, they'll go ahead and grip into the base here, so it'll hold nice and tight. Now, for the fun part. Pigtail harness. Pretty straightforward, but when it comes to mini bars, usually you're only seeing 3 to 4 wires. So in this case, with 6, you're gaining a few extra features in this R2 mini bar that you won't see anywhere else, to be honest. So to get things started, I'm gonna go ahead, put the unit to a ground source here. Also to a lead source with the red trigger wire here. And with the R2, it's designed for a 12-volt application. So if you're running a vehicle on a 10 to 16 volt range, this will work just great. Go ahead, turn it on. Now the unit itself out of the package has a preset flash pattern, and it's actually a mode that does a several pattern cycle. So it really kind of gives you everything that you'd be looking for right out of the box when you first put it to power. You have slow, you have fast, so it's very attention grabbing. Even goes back and forth and all together like you can see here. Well, say you wanted to change that. Scan lock trigger wire here, momentarily tap it to the 12-volt source, and that advances the flash pattern for the mini bar. Continue to tap it, it'll continue to advance. And once you have it set on something that fits your needs, go ahead, stop the trigger, touch process, and there you have it. Pattern will be set. So every time you take it away from power, take it away from power. Every time you turn off the power, turn it back on, your flashing will stay the same. If you're looking for a high-low function, the R2 has it. Violet trigger here, apply it to a constant 12 volts as opposed to a momentary, and you can see it drops the intensity. So for airports or job sites where you want to have a bit of an intensity reduction, this is a great unit to use. If I had more sitting on the counter in front of me for a great big blasting array of amber, sync wire. So if you wanted to tie units together just so everything's nice and uniform, you can do that with these. Now the orange wire here is a little different. You're probably initially thinking, well, that's weird that the red is the lead. You would think it would be the orange like some of the light heads. Well, in this case, it's not the case. But what's neat is it's a pattern override. So if you were looking for something that can give you multiple flash patterns in one unit, again, this will do it for you. So take the orange, apply it constantly to 12 volts, and it actually kicks into a programmed pattern override. So it's neat. The mode that I have here is something that it's set to when it comes out of the box, first time you connect the pattern override. But like the primary flash pattern, say you want to change it, scan lock wire to 12 volts momentarily while you have both the lead and the orange to power. You can adjust your flash pattern. So like your primary, go ahead, continue the process until you find a desired pattern mode that you like. I'll just do something like that. Looks good to me, nice and attention grabbing. So that is now what the pattern override's set to. Take it away, goes back into the primary mode, put it to power, goes into the override or secondary flash pattern mode. So what's important to also note with this is you would need to have two switches. You would have your main switch, which would be connected to your ground, connected to your lead, which when you turn it on, it'll give you your primary pattern. Put the orange to a positive secondary switch, so when you activate that, it puts the bar into override, so you have your second pattern. Or what you could even do is say if you have a work site where you need something to be steady burn on the roof of the vehicle and also the ability to flash, say when you're moving around, changing positions, the R2 LPPA, well, or really any of the color variations, so the R, the B, the CR with the clear dome and color match diodes will give you this option. Well, I think I've really said enough about the R2 LPPA from Whelen Engineering. I'm gonna go ahead, disconnect it. And there you have it. Inside look, R2 LPPA, Whelen Engineering. Thank you, Stuart.
The official handover. This will go right back into the warehouse, and you, the lucky customer, will get your hands to have something that Chris has held in his hands. I'm Stuart, and as always, many thanks for watching SIRENNET Television.